Okay. Um, this week's public reading is the first after a shift in our practice. Uh, we're gonna do. We're gonna be reading Genesis 18:1 through 22:24, and that's gonna be the Torah reading. And then we're gonna have a gospel reading, and we're gonna read Matthew 7 through 8. So let's get started. This week's Torah reading, Genesis 18, verse 1. And Yahweh appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre, and he was sitting in the doorway of the tent at the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, 3 men were standing near him. And he saw them and ran from the doorway of the tent to meet them. And he bowed down to the ground. And he said, My Lord, if I have found favor in your eyes, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest under the tree. And let me bring a piece of bread. Then refresh yourselves. Afterward you can pass on, once you have passed by with your servant. Then they said, Do so as you have said. Then Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah, and he said, Quickly, make 3 seahs of fine flour for kneading, and make bread cakes. And Abraham ran to the cattle, and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the servant, and he made haste to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk, and the calf which he had prepared, and set it before them. And he was standing by them under the tree while they ate. And they said to him, Where is Sarah your wife? And he said, Here, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return to you in the spring, and look, Sarah your wife will have a son. Now Sarah was listening at the doorway of the tent, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age. The way of women had ceased to be for Sarah. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, After I'm worn out, my husband is old, shall this pleasure be to me? Then Yahweh said to Abraham, What is this that Sarah laughed, saying, Is it indeed true that I will bear a child, now that I have grown old? Is anything too difficult for Yahweh? At the appointed time I will return to you in the spring, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, because she was afraid. He said, No, but you did laugh. Then the men set out from there, and they looked down upon Sodom. And Abraham went with them to send them on their way. Then Yahweh said, Shall I conceal from Abraham what I am going to do? Abraham will surely become a great and strong nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed on account of him. For I have chosen him, that he will command his children and his household after him, that they will keep the way of Yahweh, to do righteousness and justice, so that Yahweh may bring upon Abraham that which he said to him. Then Yahweh said, Because the outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very serious, I will go down and I will see. Have they done altogether according to its cry of distress, which has come to me? If not, I will know. And the men turned from there and went toward Sodom, and Abraham was still standing before Yahweh. And Abraham drew near to Yahweh and said, Will you also sweep away the righteous with the wicked? If perhaps there are 50 righteous in the midst of the city, will you also sweep them away, and not forgive the place on account of the 50 righteous in our midst? Far be it from you to do such a thing as this, to kill the righteous with the wicked, that the righteous would be as the wicked. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do justice? And Yahweh said, If I find 50 righteous in Sodom, in the midst of the city, then I will forgive the whole place for their sake. Then Abraham answered and said, Look, please, I was bold to speak to my Lord, but I am dust and ashes. Perhaps the 50 righteous are lacking 5? Will you destroy the whole city on account of the 5? And he answered, I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. And once again he spoke to him and said, What if 40 are found there? And he answered, I will not do it on account of the 40. And he said, Please, let not my Lord be angry, and I will speak. What if 30 be found there? And he answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, Please now, I was bold to speak to my Lord. What if 25 be found there? And he answered, I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. And he said, Please, let not my Lord be angry, and I will speak only once more. What if 10 are found there? And he answered, I will not destroy it for the sake of the 10. Then Yahweh left, as he finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. And the 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of Sodom. Then Lot saw them and stood up to meet them, and he bowed down with his face to the ground, and he said, Behold, my lords, please turn aside into the house of your servant, and spend the night, and wash your feet. Then you can rise early and go on your way. And they said, No, but we will spend the night in the square. But he urged them strongly, and they turned aside with him and came into his house. And he made a meal for them and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, All the people, to the last man, surrounded the house, and they called to Lot and said to him, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we may know them." But Lot went out to them at the entrance, and he shut the door behind him, and he said, "No, my brothers, please do not do such a wrong thing. Behold, I have 2 daughters who have not known a man. Please let me bring them out to you. Then do to them as it seems good in your eyes. Only to these men do not do this thing, since they came under my roof for protection." But they said, "Step aside." Then they said, "This fellow came to dwell as a foreigner, and he acts as a judge. Now we shall do worse to you than them." And they pressed very hard against the man, against Lot, and they drew near to break the door. Then the men reached out with their hands and brought Lot into the house, and they shut the door. And the men who were at the entrance of the house, they struck with blindness, both small and great, and they were unable to find the entrance. Then the men said to Lot, "Who is here with you? Bring out from the place your sons-in-law and your sons and your daughters, and all who are with you in the city. For we are about to destroy this place, because their cry has become great before Yahweh. Yahweh sent us to destroy it." Then Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law who were taking his daughters, and said, "Get up, go out from this place, because Yahweh is going to destroy the city." But it seemed like a joke in the eyes of his sons-in-law. And as the dawn came up, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Get up, take your wife and your daughters who are staying with you, lest you be destroyed with the punishment of the city." But when he lingered, the men seized him by his hand, and his wife's hand, and his 2 daughters by hand, on account of the mercy of Yahweh upon him. And they brought him out and set him outside the city. And after bringing them outside, one said, "Flee for your life. Do not look behind you, and do not stand anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, lest you be destroyed." And Lot said to them, "No, please, my lords. Behold, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown me great kindness in saving my life. But I cannot flee to the mountains, lest the disaster overtake me and I die. Behold, this city is near enough to flee there, and it is a little one. Please let me flee there. Is it not a little one? Then my life shall be saved." And he said to him, "Behold, I will grant this favor as well, that I will not overthrow the city of which you have spoken. Escape there quickly, for I cannot do this thing until you get there." Therefore, the name of the city was called Zoar. After the sun had risen upon the earth, and Lot had entered Zoar, Yahweh rained down from heaven upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from Yahweh. And he overthrew those cities and the whole plain, and the inhabitants of these cities and the vegetation of the ground. But his wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham arose early in the morning, and went to the place where he had stood before Yahweh. And he looked down upon the surface of Sodom and Gomorrah, and upon the whole surface of the land, the plain. And he saw that, behold, the smoke of the land went up like the smoke of a smelting furnace. So it was, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out from the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot lived. And Lot went out from Zoar, and settled in the hill country with his 2 daughters, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. So he lived in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn daughter said to the younger one, "Our father is old, and there is no man in the land to come in to us according to the manner of all the land. Come, let us give our father wine to drink, and let us lie with him, that we may secure descendants through our father." And they gave their father wine to drink that night. And the firstborn went and lay with her father, but he did not know when she lay down or when she got up. And it happened that the next day the firstborn said to the younger one, "Look, I laid with my father last night. Let us give him wine to drink also tonight. Then go and lie with him, that we may secure descendants through our father." And they gave their father wine to drink again that night. And the younger got up and lay with him, but he did not know when she lay down or when she got up. And the 2 daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. The firstborn gave birth to a son, and she called his name Moab. He is the father of Moab until this day. And the younger, she also gave birth to a son, and she called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites until this day. And Abraham journeyed from there to the land of the Negev, and he settled between Kadesh and Shur, and he dwelled as an alien in Gerar. And Abraham said about Sarah his wife, "She is my sister." And Avimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. And God came to Avimelech in a dream at night, and he said to him, "Look, you are a dead man on account of the woman you have taken, for she is a married woman." Now Avimelech had not approached her, so he said, "My lord, will you even kill a righteous people? Did not he himself say to me, 'She is my sister,' and she herself said, 'He is my brother'? With integrity of my heart and with cleanness of my hands I did this." Then God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know that in the integrity of your heart you did this, and I also kept you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not allow you to touch her. So now, return the wife of the man, for he is a prophet, so that he will pray for you, and you will live. And if you do not return her, know that you will certainly die, and all that are yours." So Abimelech rose early in the morning, and he called all his servants and told them all these things. And the men were very afraid. And Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, "What have you done to us? And how have I sinned against you that you brought upon me and upon my kingdom a great sin? You have done things to me that should not be done." And Abimelech said to Abraham, "What were you thinking that you did this thing?" And Abraham said, "Because I thought, surely there is no fear of God in this place. They will kill me on account of the matter of my wife. Besides, she is my sister, the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And it happened that as God caused me to wander from the house of my father, I said to her, 'This is your loyal kindness that you must do for me at every place where we come. Say concerning me, he is my brother.' And Abimelech took sheep and cattle and male slaves and female slaves, and he gave them to Abraham. And he returned Sarah, his wife, to him. And Abimelech said, 'Here is my land before you. Settle where it pleases you.' And to Sarah he said, 'Look, I have given 1,000 pieces of silver to your brother. It shall be an exoneration. You are vindicated before all who are with you.' And Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his female servants, so that they could bear children again. For Yahweh had completely closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of the matter of Sarah, the wife of Abraham. And Yahweh visited Sarah, as he had said. And Yahweh did to Sarah as he had promised, and she conceived. And Sarah bore to Abraham a son in his old age at the appointed time that God had told him. And Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised Isaac his son when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac his son was born to him. And Sarah said, "God has made laughter for me. All who hear me will laugh for me." And she said, Who would announce to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne a son to Abraham in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast on the day Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne Abraham, mocking. Then she said to Abraham, "Drive out the slave woman and her son, for the son of the slave woman will not be heir with my son, with Isaac." And the matter displeased Abraham very much on account of his son. Then God said to Abraham, "Do not be displeased on account of the boy and on account of the slave woman. Listen to everything that Sarah said to you, for through Isaac your offspring will be named. And I will also make the son of the slave woman into a nation, for he is your offspring." Then Abraham rose up early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder. And he sent her away with the child, and she went, wandering about in the wilderness in Beersheba. And when the water was finished from the skin, she put the child under one of the bushes. And she went and she sat a good distance away, for she said, "Let me not see the child's death." So she sat away from him and lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard the cry of the boy. And the angel of God called to Hagar from the heavens and said to her, "What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid, for God has heard the cry of the boy from where he is. Get up, take up the boy, and take him with your hand, for I will make him a great nation." And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the skin with water and gave a drink to the boy. And God was with the boy, and he grew and lived in the wilderness. And he became an expert with a bow, and he lived in the wilderness of Paran. And his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. And it happened that at that time Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, "God is with you in all that you do. So now, swear to me here by God that you will not deal with me falsely, or with my descendants, or my posterity. According to the kindness that I have done to you, you shall pledge to do with me and with the land where you have dwelled as an alien." And Abraham said, "I swear." Then Abraham complained to Abimelech on account of the well of water that servants of Abimelech had seized. And Abimelech said, "I do not know who did this thing, neither did you tell me, nor have I heard of it except for today." And Abraham took sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and the two of them made a covenant. Then Abraham set off 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech said to Abraham, "What is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs that you have set off by themselves?" And he said, "You shall take the 7 ewe lambs from my hand as proof on my behalf that I dug this well." Therefore that place is called Beersheba, because there the two of them swore an oath. And they made a covenant at Beersheba. And Abimelech and Phicol, his army commander, stood and returned to the land of the Philistines. And he planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called in the name of Yahweh, the everlasting God. And Abraham dwelled as an alien in the land of the Philistines many days. And it happened that after these things God tested Abraham, and he said to him, "Abraham?" And he said, "Here I am." And he said, "Take your son, your only child, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains where I will tell you. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his donkey, and he took 2 of his servants with him, and Isaac his son, and he chopped wood for a burnt offering. And he got up and went to the place which God had told him. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes, and he saw the place at a distance. And Abraham said to his servants, You stay here with the donkey, and I and the boy will go up there. We will worship, then we will return to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and placed it on Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand and the knife, and the 2 of them went together. And Isaac said to Abraham his father, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, Here is the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, God will provide the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. And the 2 of them went together. And they came to the place that God had told him. And Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood. Then he bound Isaac his son and placed him on the altar atop the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slaughter his son. And the angel of Yahweh called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not stretch out your hand against the boy. Do not do anything to him. For now I know that you are one who fears God, since you have not withheld your son, your only child, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a ram was caught in the thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it as a burnt offering in place of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place, Yahweh will provide, for which reason it is said, Today on the mountain of Yahweh it shall be provided. And the angel of Yahweh called to Abraham a second time from heaven. And he said, I swear by myself, declares Yahweh, that because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only child, that I will certainly bless you and greatly multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven and as the sand that is by the shore of the sea. And your offspring will take possession of the gate of his enemies. All the nations of the earth will be blessed through your offspring, because you've listened to my voice. And Abraham returned to his servants, and they got up and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham lived in Beersheba. And it happened that after these things, it was told to Abraham, Look, Milcah has also borne children to your brother Nahor, Uz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Kesed, Chazo, Pildash, Yidlaf, and Betuel. Now Betuel fathered Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor the brother of Abraham, and his concubine, whose name was Reumah, also bore Tebah, Gaham, Tachash, and Maachah. Okay. The New Testament reading is Matthew 7-8. All right, starting at Matthew 7. Do not judge, so that you will not be judged. For by what judgment you judge, you will be judged. And by what measure you measure out, it will be measured out to you. And why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the beam of wood in your own eye? Or how will you say to your brother, Allow me to remove the speck from your eye, and behold, the beam of wood is in your own eye? Hypocrite! First remove the beam of wood from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Do not give what is holy to dogs, or throw your pearls in front of pigs, lest they trample them with their feet and turn around and tear you to pieces. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be opened for you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. Or what man is there among you, if his son will ask him for bread, will give him a stone? Or also, if he will ask for a fish, will give him a snake? Therefore, if you, although you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? Therefore, in all things, whatever you want that people should do to you, thus also do to them, for this is the Torah and the prophets. Enter through the narrow gate, because broad is the gate and spacious is the road that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter through it, because narrow is the gate and constricted is the road that leads to life, and there are few who find it. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inside are ravenous wolves. You will recognize them by their fruits. They do not gather grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles, do they? In the same way, every good tree produces good fruit, but a bad tree produces bad fruit. A good tree is not able to produce bad fruit, nor a bad tree to produce good fruit. Every tree that does not produce good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. As a result, you will recognize them by their fruits. Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter into the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and expel demons in your name and perform many miracles in your name?' And then I will say to them plainly, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness.' Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain came down, and the rivers came, and the winds blew and beat against that house. And it did not collapse because its foundation was laid on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain came down, and the rivers came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it collapsed, and its fall was great. And it happened when Yeshua finished these words, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he was teaching them like one who had authority and not like their scribes. And when he came down from the mountain, large crowds followed him. And behold, a leper approached and worshipped him, saying, "Lord, if you are willing, you are able to make me clean." And extending his hand, he touched him, saying, "I am willing, be clean." And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Yeshua said to him, "See that you tell no one, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moses commanded for a testimony to them." Now when he entered Capernaum, a centurion approached him, appealing to him and saying, "Lord, my slave is lying paralyzed in my house, terribly tormented." And he said to him, "I will come and heal him." And the centurion answered and said, "Lord, I'm not worthy that you should come in under my roof, but only say the word, and my slave will be healed. For I also am a man under authority who has soldiers under me. And I say to this one, 'Go,' and he goes, and to another one, 'Come,' and he comes, and to my slave, 'Do this,' and he does it." Now when Yeshua heard this, he was astonished, and said to those who were following him, "Truly, I say to you, I have found such great faith with no one in Israel. But I say to you that many will come from east and west and be seated at the banquet with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the sons of the kingdom will be thrown out into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And Yeshua said to the centurion, "Go, as you believed, it will be done for you." And the slave was healed at that hour. And when Yeshua came into Peter's house, he saw his mother-in-law lying down and suffering with a fever. And he touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she got up and began to serve him. Now when it was evening, they brought to him many who were demon-possessed, and he expelled the spirits with a word, and he healed all those who were sick, in order that what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah would be fulfilled, who said, "He himself took away our sicknesses and carried away our diseases." Now when Yeshua saw many crowds around him, he gave orders to depart to the other side. And a scribe approached and said to him, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." And Yeshua said to him, "Foxes have dens, and birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." And another of the disciples said to him, "Lord, allow me first to go and bury my father." But Yeshua said to him, "Follow me, and let the dead to bury their own dead, and leave the dead to bury their own dead." And as he got into the boat, his disciples followed him. And behold, a great storm arose on the sea, so that the boat was being inundated by the waves, but he himself was asleep. And they came and woke him, saying, "Lord, save us, we are perishing." And he said to them, "Why are you fearful, you of little faith?" Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. And the men were astonished, saying, "What sort of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him?" And when he came to the other side, to the region of the Gadarenes, two demon-possessed men coming from among the tombs met him, very violent, so that no one was able to pass by along that road. And behold, they cried out, saying, "What do you have to do with us, Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?" Now a long way from them, a large herd of pigs was feeding. So the demons implored him, saying, "If you are going to expel us, send us into the herd of pigs." And he said to them, "Go." So they departed and went into the pigs, and behold, the whole herd rushed headlong down the steep slope into the sea and drowned in the water. Now the herdsmen fled and went into the town and reported everything, including the things concerning the demon-possessed men. And behold, the whole town came out to meet Yeshua. And when they saw him, they implored him that he would depart from their region. Okay, it's this week's public reading. Bless you guys.